I'm here in the classroom again, next to our beautiful plant. This is called a dumb cane plant. Dieffenbachia amina is the scientific name. Now, we have various phenomena going on here. People keep plants inside their homes. That's very normal. It's also a phenomenon. And we have other phenomena going on as we look at the plant. This plant is actually poisonous. If you ate some of the leaves, you wouldn't be able to talk for about 2 weeks. Poisonous plants are a phenomenon. There are also other phenomena going on. For example, photosynthesis. Maybe you know about it. That's the process where this plant turns carbon dioxide into oxygen that we can breathe. And with the help of the sun, of course, the plant gets food. Now, I wanted to say this because photosynthesis can also be called a process. And I purposely did not talk about process when I first introduced phenomena to you in the first video. You might be curious about this. Is a process the same as a phenomenon? Well, all processes in this world are phenomenon or phenomena. And almost all phenomena are processes, or connected and described nicely with a process. For example, we might say that sunshine is a beautiful phenomenon in our world. We might even want to add another P word, which I didn't mention in the first video: physical thing. Physical things are phenomena. But is sunshine a process? Well, not in our normal way of thinking. We can study how a star is made in the cosmos, and therefore the process of how sunshine reaches us. But in our common life, we don't really want to say that sunshine is a process. But it is connected to many interesting processes. For example, even just the process of humans and animals waking, living through the day, and then going to sleep. The key thing here is that in the government books and many English teaching books, you'll see that writing about a process and writing about a phenomenon are in different categories. And there are some general and separate methods for dealing with each one. But let's look at your example for the phenomenon writing. This example is on technophobia, the fear of technology. Okay, we first want to look at your most serious requirement for this job. Your essay needs to present as a coherent, connected whole. Now, when you write simple things in life like email, you may not have perfect, coherent connection. You might write to your friend about 3 things: a party, an exam, and a car accident, for example. It's all unconnected with stories and jokes, but still, it will all connect with one thing: you and your life. In some way, right? So, by that, it's coherent. It's at least minimally coherent and connected. But in academic writing projects, you can't be quite so free, and there's a more serious expectation of coherence and connection. But how do we do that? First of all, the writing has to be all about one topic. For starters, of course, our writing here is about one phenomenon: technophobia. But how do we make it more connected and coherent? There are many tricks, and you'll notice some of them here. One basic thing is just by mentioning the main topic by name in all your paragraphs. So you'll see here that the word technophobia appears in each paragraph. Another thing is to have closing statements, or you might like to say conclusion statements for all paragraphs. Look how they connect. The first paragraph, of course, has a main idea statement in the last sentence. These examples all seem to relate, and it's a common problem across the world. That wraps up the first paragraph nicely. Then we jump to the second paragraph. The bottom of the second paragraph, you see the fear and dislike can be analyzed and understood in various ways. That goes back to the beginning of the second paragraph when we mentioned fear and dislike. So we're connecting it again at the bottom. Fear and dislike of technology. In the third paragraph, you see analyzing the three types gives us a better understanding. The whole paragraph was about the three types, and we mentioned three types in the first sentence. So we go back to the concept of three types. It's a nice way to connect the paragraph. And of course, the conclusion paragraph has a conclusion sentence itself. The relationship between humans and machines is not always a friendly one. That brings us all the way back to the first paragraph where we said humans and machines. Humans are afraid of machines. So it's all connected. Jumps down to the bottom again, humans and machines in the last line. Another technique for creating coherence, as you will find in many writing instruction books, we give the same concept using synonyms. In this case, you'll see I did it with the word fear. Fear is really important in the essay, and we use some synonyms for the word fear. You'll see first in the second paragraph, instead of using fear again, we use the word dread, which means the same as fear. Many argue that the dread is justified. The fear is justified. Then going down a little more, we find fright, using the word fright instead of fear. Fright about technology. Then in the conclusion sentence, we see the word intimidated. That's a nice synonym for afraid or fear. And also the word distress, which is another good synonym for fear. We have another technique that you should notice. You'll see the words they and these. Now, this technique is not always perfect, and we have other words like it, those, and them, which generally refer back to important things in an essay. Now, there are options. You wouldn't need to say, for example, at the beginning of the first paragraph, these examples. You could just say, this essay will consider, or something like that. But the words they and those create connection, because it connects back in a small way to previously mentioned things. Finally, for connection and coherence, we have something that the government and many writing instruction books want to emphasize: logical connectors. Of course, you have here especially, indeed. We have the word yet, used with a but meaning, that is. Now, this essay is not so heavy with strict connectors or high-level connectors. It mainly has a lot of the word and connecting many sentences, but I will be watching a little this time as you use some good connectors such as nevertheless, whereas, as for, as to, although, even though. We hope that you're trying some good ones in this essay. Next, we need to look at the naming of things carefully. That's an important skill if you are writing about a phenomenon. We call the grandmother anxious at the beginning, but that leads us into using the word anxiety, which is not just a feeling for common life, but a technical term used by doctors and psychologists. Then we have cognitive negativity, instead of just saying bad thoughts. Paralysis of action, instead of just saying the person stops doing something. Then in paragraph 3, you have three types of technophobe. You have good technical naming there, which will be expected in this kind of assignment. Finally, we want to see a noticeable amount of passive voice. Of course, in technical and scientific writing, we need to use it a lot. And with all writing about a phenomenon, we are stepping into the scientist's laboratory, so to speak. Even when someone writes for a friendly newspaper article, if he starts to write about a phenomenon, you will often notice he starts to take a slightly more scientific style with more passive voice. Have a quick look. We start with a kind of grandfather passive here at the top. Humans are affected by. Then in the second paragraph, we see is justified. And then down to the bottom of the paragraph, fear and dislike can be analyzed and understood. Nice passives. In the next paragraph, we see the types of technophobia are presented, were developed and researched. First are called, second are called. Then you have the conclusion paragraph, being intimidated. That's a nice progressive passive. Very interesting. I hope you can appreciate all the good elements here. Please be careful not to cheat. Do not copy from the internet. You will notice that I have copied one sentence here. That's the definition of technophobia from Wikipedia. Sometimes we do want to copy definitions precisely from a source and then give a reference. I've given the reference from that source as well as references to one movie and the book Frankenstein. Thanks for listening. Good success with your assignment.